Hello everyone and welcome to the Books of Morgan. I'm Morgan and today I'm going to be doing my October TBR. I know it's been a really long time since I've put a video out. I think it's been over a month and I didn't do a September TBR or a September wrap up because September was crazy for me. I read 6 books. I didn't love pretty much any except for The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. I just didn't feel like it was worth making a wrap up for September because I had very mixed feelings about the books that I read, and I was just not super passionate about the books that I read and I didn't feel like showing it, and I also just didn't have a lot of time. I spent a lot of my time with family. I spent a lot of time working. I now have a full-time job, which is very exciting, but I've just been figuring things out this last month and haven't had a lot of time to dedicate to reading or to filming videos. But October is here. I'm feeling better. I'm not as anxious as I was. I'm feeling more settled, so I have a lot of ambitious reading plans. And it's spooky season, so I gotta read some spooky books. What's so funny is that I actually hate horror movies, but I like spooky books. I don't like horror books. I refuse to read Stephen King because I know it'll scare me. But I do like supernatural books, and I like books that are based in legends and have Halloween vibes. I love comfy reads as well, so definitely going to be doing some reading of those types of books. Guys, I have read 70 books. Well, 71 because I just finished one in October. But I have read 70 books up until October. So I need to read 30 books by the end of the year to meet my Goodreads goal of 100 books. So gotta get the reading done. So got a hefty TBR here. Hopefully I can make it. I can do it. And I know that reading goals aren't necessary. I know I should be so proud of myself for having read 71 books as of today. That is a huge accomplishment all on its own. But for me, I'm ooh, 100. I really want to get that. And I want to read so much. There are so many books that I'm excited about reading and that have been sitting on my shelves for a really long time. And I feel obligated to read them, but I also feel that I want to enjoy reading them and all that stuff too. If you would like to keep up with my reading progress and my reviews of all books that I read, go ahead and friend me on Goodreads. I link it in every single video that I have published. It is a really great way to see what I'm reading right now because I do keep up with it religiously, so definitely check that out. And I do now write reviews for every single book I read. I didn't used to, but now I'm writing reviews for all the books that I read and all my thoughts and feelings. So if you want to know more, go ahead and friend me on Goodreads. Okay, I'm going to get into the TBR now. There's a lot here. So the first book that I had on my October TBR that I've just finished as of yesterday was Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. This is an older book. It came out in 2013, so it's it's getting up to being 10 years old now. And I loved the movie and I never read the book, so I wanted to read the book. And this was gifted to me by another bookstagrammer. I forget her name. I think her name is Alexandra. So I read Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. I mostly listened to the audiobook for this one. Sorry. But I gave it 2 stars. It wasn't my fave. I got really confused by the plot. I was like, what is the plot? I get that there's this huge family in Singapore that's rich and all their friends and family are rich and they do rich people things and complain about poor people, but what is the plot? What is the plot of Crazy Rich Asians other than rich people being rich people? Would love to know. I hate rich people. Eat the rich. You know, I'm an eat the rich kind of gal, so this was really painful for me to read in certain parts because I just wanted to shake them and be like, you have so much privilege and you are not good people, and this is frustrating to me to read. So I finished this, didn't love it. I gave it 2 stars. I liked the ending, I think, but it just like went into weird directions, and there were so many different perspectives of people. I was like, who is who and what is happening? There's like 5 million different things happening in this, and I'm like, no, this is not for me. I know a lot of people love it, but honestly, I think the movie's better because I wasn't as confused in the movie. Also, Awkwafina makes that movie, and Awkwafina, not in this book, so, well, her character is, but, you know, Awkwafina is her own thing, so she definitely made the movie for me, and yeah, her character in this book doesn't have the same personality, so yeah, not my favorite book that I've read all year. Okay, I also started another book in September that I'm hoping to finish this month, and it's a big one. It's huge actually, and it scares me. But I am reading Dragonfly in Amber by Diana Gabaldon. This is the second book in the Outlander series, and I'm like 250 pages in. I'm like a quarter of the way through, and there's like 700 pages in this book, so it's a doozy. And I don't like the direction that it's going in. I don't love it as much as I loved the first one. Outlander, as you know, is like my favorite book of the year, and this book is simply a disappointment, and I hope it gets better because I'm starting to lose steam on this one. Like, I almost want to DNF it because I'm getting so frustrated about where this plot is headed. And yeah, that's all I gotta say about that, really. You'll hear more of my thoughts in the wrap-up, but essentially, this is historical fiction. It follows Claire and Jamie, and Claire is from 1940s England, and Jamie is from 1760s Scotland, and she travels back in time. They fall in love. It's a whole thing. This just follows what happens after the big stuff that happened in the first book, and this one is not as good so far. And I'm mad, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. Another book that I have on my TBR is A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. This is a gender-bent Sherlock Holmes story. It's YA, but I figured like Sherlock, England, mystery stuff would be perfect for fall, for October. I feel like this is the season to read like cozy little YA mystery books. And it's been on my shelf for a really long time, and I've heard good things about this, and mystery isn't my forte, but I love Sherlock Holmes. I think he's a fun character. I love the series on BBC, so I'm going to read this. And it's a short book too. Then I have my book club book that I have to read this month that was selected by my lovely cousin Allison, who also has a YouTube channel. She is Nature's Cozy. She does a knitting podcast, but at the end of her podcast she always talks about books that she's reading and how she feels about them. We actually have like differing opinions about a lot of books, but I got her to read the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas, and she loved it. She also loved Crescent City, which you all know I hate, but I got her on that Sarah J. Maas train, and yeah, she reads not as much as I do, but she reads a good amount, and I'm proud of her, and I'm happy she's reading. But anyways, she chose this book, and that is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This is mystery, and it's essentially like Clue. And there's like this murder that happens, and then we follow the murder from the perspectives of Evelyn Hardcastle, I believe. And it's kind of like a Groundhog's Day where she wakes up and relives the murder over and over again, and she has to figure out who the murderer is in this house. Like Haunted Mansion type thing. I don't really know. But first of all, I have two issues with this book. One, the title is too close to The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, so I'm definitely going to get this mixed up with that book, which I loved. Also, second issue, I hate the Groundhog's Day trope. I hate watching the same thing happen over and over and over again. That Mindy Kaling episode when it happened to her, hated it. I hate it when it happens in any other thing that I watch. Like, I hate that trope so much. I hate reliving the same day over and over again. It's frustrating to me. It's repetitive, and I don't like it. So yeah, that's like my least favorite trope ever, and that is this entire book. So I'm going into this book thinking I'm going to hate it, and I would love to be proved wrong, simply because I have to read this. It's 500 pages, 450, whatever. And I don't think, I don't know. We'll see how I feel. That's this book. Next, I actually have a thriller on my TBR, which I don't like thrillers that much, but this author, I enjoyed the other book that I read by her, so I want to read this one too. And that is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. I read In a Dark, Dark Wood last year, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good thriller as thrillers go, and I gave it like 4 out of 5 stars, so I have high hopes for this one as well. And again, not a huge thriller person, but I like Ruth Ware, and I want to read another book by her, and this has been on my shelf for a really long time, so figure now is the perfect time to do it. I think this follows a woman in a cruise ship and there's a murder or something. I don't really know. Sketchy things happening. It's a thriller. I like Ruth Ware, so that's why I'm going to read it again. Or read this book by her. And I figure, good vibes. I also just like really want to read a bunch of vampire books this month because I'm a vampy queen and I love vampires, and anyone who knows me knows I love vampires. It's like all I tweet about on Twitter. So if you want vampire content, follow me on Twitter. It's going to be linked in my description box down below. Yes, vampires, hot, sexy, immortal, want to be one day. Yeah, that's how I feel about vampires. But I have to read this classic vampire novel because it was actually sent to me by Capitol Hill Books. I did one of their mystery boxes, and you like fill out this form about books you like, and then they select a bunch of books and they'll send it to you. You'll pay like, I don't know, 50 bucks or something, or however much you want to spend on books, and they'll send it to you. It's curated for you, and this was one of them, and I'm actually pretty excited about it. And that is, again, I will link that form in the description box down below. Support your independent bookstores. It's awesome. But they sent me Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles. This is the first volume, so there's actually 3 books within this book. And the first book is famously an interview with a vampire. And I've never read it. I think it was written in the 70s. So for me, like, this is a classic vampire book that I've never read before. And I'm very interested. I've heard it's erotic. I heard there's some great smut with vampires, and I am all about it, and I cannot wait. I'm gonna read the first one for sure. I mean, I'm not gonna read all 3 books. This is a huge book, but definitely going to read the first one this month, and if I love it, I might just read the whole thing. We'll see. But yeah, I'm very excited to read more about vampires and sexy vampires especially. So yeah. I have 2 other vampire books on my TBR, and it's by the same author actually. So I have Slayer by Kirsten White on my TBR, and I have been rewatching Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the last month, and I think I'm on season 3 now, and it is awesome. I love Buffy. Spike, oh my gosh, Giles, like I just love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and this is Kirsten White's retelling of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so obviously I have to read it. This follows a different Slayer, but I think Buffy is still very much involved. I don't know if this takes place in Sunnydale. I hope it does. But I am obsessed with Buffy, and this is going to be awesome. I hope Spike is in this. Like, if he's not, I'm going to cry because he's the best character in that entire universe. That's all I have to say about that. And yeah, spooky vibes. I am also continuing on with Kirsten White's famous trilogy, The Conqueror Saga, and I am going to read Now I Rise, which is the second book in the saga. I read And I Darken, I want to say like 2 years ago, like it's been a minute. Loved it. I thought it was so cool. It's YA historical fiction that follows a female version of Vlad the Impaler in Transylvania in the 1400s. It is actually so cool. Like, I love The writing in this, like, it's super fast paced, even though it's kind of a big book. I think this is like 400 something pages. This is actually like a very cool book. I feel like I get transported into Transylvania when I'm reading this, and well, I haven't started it, but the first one I was like, this is actually kind of like historically not wrong. Like, I feel YA historical fiction gets it wrong a lot, and the way that things are described are so like realistic to me as an historical person. I'm not a historical figure, but as someone who reads a lot of history, who studied history in college, I find that the writing in this is actually pretty good. Like, I'm not an expert by any means on Transylvania or Dracula or anything like that, but I do think the way that this is written is pretty realistic for the time period, and I'm obsessed with it, and I don't know why I haven't continued reading it, but I need to, because it's so brutal. It is so graphically violent for a YA novel, and it's very bloody. Impalings happen. It's a whole thing. Oh my gosh, the character development in this, fascinating. Like, I'm addicted to this, so I'm very excited to read it. My only complaint was, honestly, I think I gave it like 4 out of 5 stars, the first one, and my only complaint was I wish it was actually an adult novel, because I think you would get more out of it. I think we could get more in-depth information about Transylvania and stuff. So that was my only complaint, and I love it. I'm excited to read the second book. I have one book of the month book left to read. Well, I'm gonna read one book of the month book because I'm following the book of the month, like, reading goals and stuff for 2020 reading challenge. It's on the app, and I'm one book away from hitting 12 books this year. And if I hit 12 books this year and all my reading challenges, which I've read 3 debuts, I've read 5 different genres, like, I got those. I just need to read one more book and then I get a free candle. So I am excited about that. So I am decided to read Atomic Love by Jenny Fields. This is historical fiction, takes place in the 1950s or 60s, I believe, and it's basically the Cold War, female spy in Russia. She's got to hunt her ex-lover with this new guy because they think he's involved with some sketchy nuclear program in Russia, and he's selling US secrets, and female spies, Cold War, romance. Like, that's all you gotta sell me on, really. Like, I'm excited about this. I've heard mixed things. I've heard people think it's good but not great, but I'm sold on the premise, and I am excited to see how I feel about it. And yes, that's this. Last book that I have on this TBR is a book that I had for my September TBR that I never actually read, but I still want to read, and that is Warrior of the Wild by Trisha Levenseller. This is a YA Viking historical fiction book. Dude, I have lots of historical stuff on this TBR. I think all the books that I have on this TBR are historical. Wow. I just realized that. What can I say? I love history. But yeah, this is Vikings, fantasy, that kind of stuff. The reason that I want to read this is because I think Vikings are cool. Like, I think that's a really fun thing to read about. I never studied Vikings in college. Like, that's not my area of expertise again at all. But if I could go back in time and live amongst the Vikings, I think that'd be really interesting. It's a very cool thing for me. I don't know. Scandinavian men are just so hot. What can I say? Yeah, and I've never read Trisha Levenseller, and I've heard good things about her as a writer, and yeah, I want to read about Vikings, and that's all I got to say about that. Whew, those are all the books on my TBR for October. I will be happy to read like at least half of them. And things always change. My mood changes and see what I want to actually read. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more from me, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye!